Yo, look at these toilets in the Carlton. Look at this shit. They got a bidet.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cannes Canon. We are here on the Terrasse des Journalistes. This is the journalists' terrace.
Got a great view.
We have the view here of a bunch of little shops and whatnot. But right now we have some films to talk about, and I really want to talk about Oliver Laxe's Sirat. How do we start talking about this?
We start talking about it by saying that this is a movie that you want to know as little about as possible, I would say. The shock, the surprise of the film, it comes from not knowing exactly what this is. I advise you strongly, go in as blind as you possibly can, because there are some surprises that come through this that are very much worth not knowing about beforehand.
Although I will say, I mean, Matt and I, we over-prepare. You know, we look into these films a lot. And we knew a lot of details about this film. The story of a man played by Sergi Lopez who goes to Morocco from rave to rave trying to find his daughter who's been missing for a few months. But let's just say that the film is not what it initially seems at first.
It goes in directions that are completely surprising, and it goes places that constantly I was thinking to myself, is it really gonna push it that far? Is it gonna go there? Are we really doing this right now? And it does it constantly every time. And that's the type of stuff that, like, highly recommend.
Yes.
Keep yourself as insulated as possible. Don't read too much about this film. We won't spoil any plot details here.
This isn't going to be a film that is going to be embraced by everyone.
No.
And the embrace will largely depend on whether you like the direction it ultimately takes and what the film ultimately is. The film really won me over because this is something, it's not just because it's surprising and it's initially shocking, but because this is a film that is of an immense tragedy that is just completely unfathomable, immeasurable, and ultimately it's a film that feels very human because of that. It's a film which pushes these characters to what feels like the ends of the world. It is a film of immeasurable pain, of immeasurable bleakness. It completely marked me. It scarred me.
And despite the bleakness of it, it is very emotional. It is very resonant in that way. You were saying that at first you weren't sure with the direction it was going. To me, some of the events that happen in this, some of the ways that the plot goes, yes, it's surprising, it's shocking. However, it sort of imitates life in a sense, because stories offer us explanations. Stories oftentimes are structured in a way where things make sense, and the way that things happen makes sense because an author is sitting at their typewriter saying this is the direction that things go in, and it'll all make sense in the end. But life does not do that. Life does not offer such conveniences, and so it is a very shocking and confusing film just in the feelings of it, because it doesn't offer you those explanations. It doesn't offer you the easy way. It slams you down the way that life does, with unexpected things that happen that completely alter the trajectory from where we initially thought this journey was going.
There is a very basic kind of outline of a plot. This is a film that, to a certain extent, loses track of the initial plot, you know? And it's because the film just becomes something else and moves in like you were saying, on unexpected ways. And I mean, this is a film that has like a very unique setting and is populated by an incredible cast of very naturalistic characters.
And distinct characters.
Yes.
Every single one of them, is, in terms of personality, in terms of visual look, each of them is very clearly curated to fit in this sort of oddball family of ravers just moving from place to place in the desert, in the casting of these people, who all, mind you, play characters with the same first names as themselves. So they're all
other
playing,
than Sergi Lopez.
Other than Sergi Lopez, they're all playing a version of themselves.
We were talking about Mimosas with Oliver Laxe. He really likes these kind of mythical quest films. I was kind of identifying him as a filmmaker who liked the spiritual, and you can find that in the raves, I suppose. But I think this is a filmmaker who likes to put his characters in these like more than human situations. With enormous burdens, characters are faced with some scenes that you would pray would never happen to you. It is really gut-wrenching. It's a film that, as I was watching it, I'm sure you reacted this way. I was starting to shake. It's this kind of structure and this kind of way of depicting the human race, I suppose. These are the kinds of stories that feel immense.
Yeah, I had this pit in my stomach while watching it.
Last thing I want to mention is the title. Sirat, if I remember correctly, it is a very, very thin line that's thinner than a hair. It separates heaven and hell. It's not a biblical film, I guess, but just having that title, and there are definitely some scenes where you can kind of superimpose that title to those scenes.
Yep.
And
there are quite a few scenes that are about that razor thin line, that bridge.
There's a lot of motifs of lines, whether it's the lines of the road, train tracks, or something else which we won't mention. You know what it is if you've seen the film. I think it's a brilliant title, and I think it enriches the film even further. Something
that really shocked me with this one, because Mimosas was a very slow film. At times it feels like it's testing your patience. I've heard the same thing about Fire Will Come. Sirat it moves with such an energy.
Yeah.
I can't see this boring anyone. It's surprisingly accessible. It is art house, but in a sense, I would say it's almost like pop art house. I think pop might be the wrong word, but like it's an EDM art house.
I see what you mean, though.
It's thumping, it moves with energy. It's something that I think a lot of people are going to find surprisingly accessible and easy to get into. I should also mention that for Sirat, I tried something out which the locals here call le tapinage. It's when you stand outside of the movie premiere holding up a sign that says, "Looking for a ticket, please," and you walk down the street and you hope someone picks you up off the sidewalk and says, "Here you go, here's a ticket."
And it's a Cannes tradition.
It's a Cannes tradition. You see people every year doing this, and it oftentimes looks a little bit humiliating. It's a little bit of an exercise in public embarrassment. It worked. I got a ticket, I got into the premiere, I got to experience being in the room with Giga Chad, Oliver Laxe.
He does look, I looked at it later, but yeah, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous. People this hot should not be making movies. There should be a law against that. But it was such a great room to be in, because especially with this movie, there are shocks, there are twists, there are turns, and you could feel the entire room gasping at the same time. And when the film ended, the standing ovation was rapturous.
How long, about approximately?
Over 7 minutes.
Okay. Well, let's move on to our next film. This is Richard Linklater's newest film, Nouvelle Vague.
Je marche dans la rue, ce type me filme avec une caméra dans un triporteur de la Poste. Et je dis tout ce qui me passe par la tête parce que tous les dialogues seront doublés plus tard.
Nouvelle Vague, un film de Richard Linklater, un film de cinéma.
This is the story of the making of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, the classic 1960 film which revolutionized cinema in many ways, introduced new techniques like the jump cut, and really brought this youthful energy to filmmaking. Honestly, I don't think Richard Linklater would be the filmmaker that he is without a film like Breathless showing that independent movies can be made like this. In our discussion on Richard Linklater earlier, I really focused on Richard Linklater being the perfect person to take on a film about the French New Wave. I think I was right, because he does have such a formally playful style. Back to the 90s when he was first coming up, he made movies the exact same way that Godard and Truffaut and Chabrol. This is the type of filmmaker who was meant to make a movie about the French New Wave. Now that said, Jean-Luc Godard would have fucking hated this movie.
Just to clarify, this isn't a film that imitates the style of the Nouvelle Vague. It imitates the look, the aesthetic.
In time.
Not really.
I would say so. I mean, the Nouvelle Vague is so many different things, and it's got that
Yeah, but
energy,
this is much more a standard, like beat by beat, narrative film that
in terms
uses
of narrative,
the form.
You're right.
It's filmed. I'm assuming with, or at least has a filter over top of it.
I think that they tried to imitate some of the techniques that they used. From having read a little bit about it, I think that they tried to keep their crew to a similar level. They tried to not have all of the frills of a major production. They wanted to kind of embody the production with the spirit
But I
of
guess
the new wave.
what I'm trying to say is that it is a film executing a script. It's really not the best example, but there was a biopic of Godard made by Hasnavicius in 2017 called Godard Mon Amour in English. And that film, you know, in some scenes was trying to really imitate the style of Godard's films of the late 60s, early 70s. Yes. That was a film that was trying to imitate the form more so than this film is. And I think Richard Linklater is a good fit because he's good at these hangout films and these philosophical meanderings like we were saying. And that's probably one of the keys of this film, which I guess is worth noting, is not written by Richard Linklater. I guess it shows in that this is a film that is truly, authentically French. There is not a false note in this. Like, other than Richard Linklater being involved in this project, you could not guess that this was an American film.
But it's not an American film.
Right.
This is completely a French production. The only thing that's American about it is Richard Linklater.
Exactly, and that's good. I think he put himself into this culture. I mean, other than the fact that it's a niche subject for cinephile, this is a very accessible film. So that's what I guess I'm saying when I'm saying that this is very Richard Linklater and not necessarily Nouvelle Vague.
Yes, well, but it's got those elements in terms of the narrative of Dazed and Confused, of Everybody Wants Some. And very recently, this is not Richard Linklater, this is Jason Reitman, but I was reminded a lot of Saturday Night, for good effect and for bad effect. There are so many characters here. It is a lot of the time resting on the laurels of, you know these filmmakers, you've heard these names before.
The film does a really cool thing, which is that before scenes start with new characters, they do these just shots of the characters looking at the camera with the text of their name appearing at the bottom. That way you don't have the sense that characters are going to randomly pop up during a scene so that people can gush over, oh, I recognize that person. It's more so like, hey, just so you know, this character is going to be in this scene. That way you're not lost as to who's playing who.
To me, this does a lot of the things that I think Saturday Night was trying to do last year in capturing this youthful energy, this youthful movement of young artists wanting to do something special and succeeding. But I do think Nouvelle Vague got a lot closer, at least, to capturing the spirit of the youth that did something exceptional. It really democratizes it in a way. It makes it easy to see that the new wave is not this pretentious group of films that are so difficult to watch. It's fun, it's easy, it's a cinema of the youth. It's not something that's only for the highbrow. It's something that is meant for all.
For people who are starting to get interested into cinema and who do not know the French New Wave very well, I think this will be a key film. This is a perfect starting point.
And that's great. These types of films that act as a gateway drug are so formative and so important. There's going to be some kids out there that watch this, some teenagers that watch this and go, oh my God, I want to learn everything about this. The same way that back in 2011 when I was like 13 years old, watching Hugo, watching The Artist got me interested in silent film and the history of cinema. And those acted as a gateway for me to really dive deep into what movies could be.
Just behind me we got the Eddington premiere. One film I have not seen, but I'm really curious about is Eddington, which you have seen. The highly anticipated new film, fourth film by Ari Aster. It is his first time in competition.
I think this is Ari Aster's weakest. And this is coming from someone who loves Beau is Afraid. I was bored after 10 minutes of Eddington. And I spent most of the runtime sitting there going, God, are we really doing this? Are we really doing a COVID movie like this?
Does it feel like he compiled popular Twitter tweets?
So what it really feels like to me is it's like you're scrolling through Facebook and you're seeing a bunch of shit that enrages you and you're scrolling past all of these ideas and you don't stay on any of them long enough to be fleshed out, to really get anything tangible from them. It moves past them so fast that it doesn't develop anything. And so it stays at this very surface level, and the satire of it, it's smashing you over the head and going like, remember this? Look at how stupid everyone is. Look at how stupid we all are. And I just found it frustrating. Typically with satire, I want some new observations. I want some things that don't feel like preaching to the choir, telling me exactly what I already know, what I already want to hear. But like, it spends like 10 minutes on a bit about people having their masks under their nose. These are all jokes that are like 5 years too late. Like maybe in 2020 you could have been like, oh, isn't that so stupid? But in 2025, all I can feel is like, can we just fucking move on? Like this is This is not an era that I find enjoyable to revisit. It was a frustrating time to live through. I felt frustrated while watching the film.
So a film you would still recommend seeing, or?
It's hard for me to say because I know it's going to be polarizing. I know people out there will love it. I know some people are going to watch me talking about this and say, what the fuck are you talking about? This is amazing. People will love it, people will hate it. It's not a film I can either say I recommend or I don't recommend. It's a film that's polarizing. You're gonna have to make your own mind up about this movie. Now, you have done something very interesting, which is the past couple of days you've been visiting the Immersive competition, which is something I'm completely unfamiliar about. I'd love to hear about your experience doing the sort of VR. Is it all VR or what is this?
Okay, so this is something that's completely new to me too. The word immersive is key here because it's not restricted to things like VR, right. AR, etc. It is something that is, multimedia, and that is meant to be immersive in some way. I've done 3 immersive competition titles, and what was fun about them is that they're all different. So the first one I did was Beyond the Vivid Unknown, which is co-created by Godfrey Reggio of the Cazzi trilogy. If you like documentaries and art house, experimental documentaries, you definitely know his name. Koyanis Cazzi is super influential, and what's interesting about this one is that it is a sort of remake as an exhibition piece in which the screens in front of you are essentially AI-generated images from the film Koyanis Cazzi that change every maybe half a second, and you see this flux of so many images coming through. There are scenes that are repeated, and I've seen some scenes the same amount of time, but it's randomly interspersed. Kind of mind-melting experience of essentially a blend of technology and the possibilities of AI art. The second one I did was a VR experience. It's called In the Current of Being. This is a 20-25 minute experience in which you are suited up in this room, and I mean literally suited up. The piece is narrated by a trans woman who recounts and muses on conversion therapy. Throughout the piece, your suit, which has shaking sensors and whatnot, are used to a certain effect. So think the remotes of the Switch. Kind of these are all over your body, on the gloves, on your arm. And yes, sometimes they are used to shock you. You're essentially living through what it was like, to a certain extent, to go through this conversion therapy. And I thought it was a pretty brilliant piece. And then the last piece I saw was this piece called Lily, which stars Zahar Amir Ebrahimi.
C'est quand même une adaptation de Lady Macbeth de Shakespeare en Iran, quelque part.
Hello, who am I speaking with?
Fair is foul and foul is fair.
You sit down in front of a monitor and you are taking the role of a hacker, trying to break in and spy on the wife of a high-ranking Iranian deputy. The hacking is not very realistic. You play little puzzle games of sorts as you're spying through different monitors of the home. The set is clearly not that realistic. I think this is an experience that was cheesy, but the subject is still quite poignant, and it was an original way of expressing those ideas. I don't think it was super strong, but I liked the concept and I liked the idea a lot. But basically, I guess what I want to get at, through these 3 experiences, none of them were the same.
I had kind of thought of this as, this is just going to be a bunch of VR, you put on a helmet and you look around. Yeah. But this sounds like so much more. It sounds like every single thing is this tailor-made artistic experience that you really only can get in a venue like this, or in a museum eventually.
As radical as films can be, at the end of the day, you're going into a theater, you're going to see light and images, you're sitting down for a set amount of time, and then you leave.
Yeah.
Here, it's always going to be pushing the boundaries of what artistic experiences can be. But if there is an immersive, festival of some kind, I encourage you guys to take a look, test it out. This was something I was very unfamiliar with. This is a world I do not know very well, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I thought these experiences kind of made me think outside of the box.
So now let's talk about a few other films that I'm sure people out there would love to hear about. One of my big surprises of the festival, shouldn't be a surprise, but I'd heard a little bit of negative buzz about this one, but I was really shocked by how wonderful Left-Handed Girl was. It is the new Shi Ching-soo film, who has been the producer of all of Sean Baker's films except for Anora.
On the second day of the competition, we're heading to Taipei and its night markets with Left-Handed Girl by director Shi Ching-soo.
And this was co-written and edited and produced by Sean Baker as well. And his mark is all over this movie. It's shot on an iPhone, so it feels kind of like Tangerine. It features a child actor in the lead role who's giving a Brooklyn Prince level performance. So funny, so adorable. So it's got that element of the Florida Project to it. It's set in this very intense working space in a night market in Taipei. And so that's kind of reminiscent of Takeout being set in this very intense New York City Asian restaurant. All of the collaborations between Shi Ching-soo and Sean Baker are here. And it's all in one movie, and it's so wonderful and full of life and laughter. Well, that brings us to, I think, the end of this few days of Cannes. Tomorrow, we will be discussing the filmmakers Kleber Mendonça Filho and Julia Ducournau. So stay tuned and see you later.